Thank you, Alex. Let me tell you a little bit about New Mexico. In New Mexico, spring began with extreme weather events ravaging my state and multiple states around us. Roughly 44% of the America West has been categorized in extreme drought, which is the second highest level of drought, widespread water shortages, and restrictions. One small town in New Mexico, Chama, went weeks without running water. They just got back and running yesterday. In New Mexico, there has been 31 fires since March, with over 900,000 acres burned. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, expects to manage triple the number of disasters this year as it did a decade ago. A group of FEMA representatives have been living in New Mexico since April. Thousands in New Mexico have been impacted from extreme heat and deadly fires, and the season has just started. This climate challenge devastates families, livelihoods, and children. People will rebuild, but the fires have left not only burn scars on the land, but scars and traumatic raw emotions that will last throughout many people's lives. Trying to keep up with the effects of climate change on our forests and mountainous areas has been almost impossible. A prescribed burn to help eliminate fires in very dry regions caused our largest fire. Energy independence is critical. We need to move away from our dependence on fossil fuel. And that's a big jump for New Mexico. In New Mexico, 40% of our budget comes from fossil fuel, and it funds education in our state. But we know as a state, in order to survive these catastrophic events, we must move away from the major cause, the use of fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are a national security threat that has caused a global climate emergency. The G7 nations meetings in Germany show their resolve to stand united against Putin's Ukrainian war. And I remember that same unification emerged from COP26. I left assured that the leading nations of our planet would meet the challenges of the climate crisis before mass migration and conflicts caused by scarcity of resources accelerated. We're America. We can lead on this issue. First, we must rein in the oil and gas industries that are making billions in profits while everyday citizens' pocketbooks are breaking. These industries report bumper profits, yet without raising the cost of extraction, but increasing the price of gas. These industries not only get a free pass to emit heat-trapping gas that exasperates extreme weather and climate disasters, they continue to get taxpayer funds. This May, 6 senators introduced a resolution saying that gas and oil companies have engaged in profiteering by using record profits to reward investors and shareholders, rather than to help lower prices at the pump. This non-binding resolution signaled that high-ranking senators view the war in Ukraine and its impact on energy prices as a reason to accelerate the transition to clean energy rather than lock in dependence on fossil fuel, and so do I. A rapid transition to clean and renewable energy is not just necessary for our environment, but it's critical to our economic and national security. In 1940, during World War II, the Lend-Lease Act became law to promote the defense of the United States. At the time, the US produced less than 5% of the world's manufactured goods. But by 1945, it was over 80%. President Biden enacted the Lend-Lease to help Ukraine fight to keep their democracy in the hopes of the free world alive. President Biden, in his vision and brilliance, also invoked the Defense Production Act for clean energy, for solar panels, heat pumps, and electrolyzers for green hydrogen, as well as insulation for buildings. Substantially more investment is needed to set the United States on a path to 50% reduction in carbon pollution by 2030, the goal scientists say is necessary to prevent the worst impact of climate change. The good news is there is legislation for the Senate that would meet that goal. The bill formerly known as the Build Back Better Act was passed by the House last November and would inject $555 billion into clean, renewable infrastructure and grow hundreds of thousands of union jobs. The legislation has been stalled, but it's not too late for the Senate to do the moral thing and join the majority of Americans who taking action against climate change and enacting legislation that will do so. I signed up to serve and protect my country in the Air Force, and now my state as a public servant. We owe it to the American people to take logical, sensible steps to improve their lives. These climate provisions before the Senate would set the US on the course to meet our greenhouse gas emissions reduction targets, create millions of good paying jobs, reduce energy costs for consumers, advance environmental justice, invest in climate resilient housing and community infrastructure, and strengthen our economy on the road to energy independence. It's a win-win. Americans need the incentives of this bill to purchase electric vehicles, and car manufacturers need the incentive to ramp up production. It's time for the Senate to act with conviction for the health of our planet, people, democracy, and energy independence. With cars and light duty vehicles making up 20% of all US gas emissions and 45% of all US oil consumption, we must address the pollution they cause now. I applaud the administration's decision to set stronger clean car standards through 2026. And I hope President Biden will take the next steps in implementing long-term standards to reach the 60% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions from new vehicles by 2030. With the Build Back Better climate provision, we won't be ending fossil fuel use, but we will put Americans on a clear path to do so. This legislation will show the world that America can live up to the potential of our country's democratic promise. Our lives and those of our children and grandchildren, our economy, and our national security depend on us meeting the existential threat of the climate crisis.